A very good morning to you. Welcome to AM Live. This Friday, we'll be looking at the state of the nation in the course of the next 2 hours. And that is with my panelists, Newton Hamasi, the Democratic Party spokesman, as well as Kidimaga governance and policy expert. And also with us this morning will be Joseph Chege. He is an Azmio youth leader as well as a political analyst. Before we get into that, let's take a look at the top stories. And the safety of anyone on the demonstrations trail is not guaranteed, neither from the protesters, who are in many instances charged, nor from the enforcers of the law, the police, who should be their defenders. NTV shares exclusive images this morning that show just how police officers act in excess even when their efforts to repel protesters have borne fruit, lobbing tear gas canisters into vehicles after continuously firing canisters towards unarmed journalists. With this disturbing turn of events is Dan Mwangi.
Out of the cloud of smoke from tear gas canisters and the crowd of charged protesters, some of whom are hurling stones at the police, is the convoy in which Azimio leader Raila Odinga and his team are moving. The vehicles are tucked into the sea of demonstrators as they make their way down the road between Embakasi and Pipeline in Nairobi. The lead vehicle is followed by that which has media teams on board. This has a sound system which enables the media to get connected to the audio system for clear reception when the leaders speak on the microphones. Then, more tear gas. The crowds disappear into the clouds of smoke. The convoy is now on the front line. As the vehicles were being fired at, the tear gas got overwhelming. The men hanging on the side of this lead vehicle, KCH 822R, drop off and run for that much desired and needed breath. The driver opts to turn back, as is the case with the other vehicles in the convoy. As the U-turns are being made, the media vehicle, KBB 233B, is now at the front, the most vulnerable, and its occupants begin to flee. The driver as well also abandons the vehicle. The journalists atop the SUV are seen raising their hands in surrender, but the police will not surrender on their affront. The water cannon truck swings into action, complementing the tear gas, which is still being lobbed. It's an active scene. The vehicles with the leaders turn, leaving the media vehicle. The journalists, some of whom are badly injured, manage to come down and seek refuge. The driverless vehicle sits between a wet road and deserted sound equipment, windscreen damaged, cables hanging, and canisters and stones littered around it. The backs of the Raila Odinga convoy turned to the vehicle as they drive in the opposite smoky direction. While one would expect calm to be the case here, the police are yet to be done with their assignment. This series of images shows a man in civilian clothing, masked and armed, breaking the windscreen with his gun, piercing through and shooting a canister into the vehicle. If there was anyone left in the car, this would do them damage. As he does that, the other officers, some in uniform and another who would likely be presumed to be a bystander before the drama ensued, appear ready to take out anyone who the tear gas may smoke out of the car. The shooter walks away, then comes back for another round, this time breaking the driver's window and firing yet another canister into the vehicle. After this, it seems his work is done, going by the fact that he checks his gun and walks away. Dan Mwangi, NTV.
In fact, that informs the front page of the Daily Nation. Outrage. I have to say, speaking for myself, I for one am vibrating with outrage. Okay, and staying on those demonstrations, Azimio One Kenya leader Raila Odinga and his counterpart Kalonzo Musyoka have lashed out at the Kenya Kwanza administration over the attacks meted out on journalists covering the anti-government protests. Odinga's statement comes after NTV's cameraman Eric Sinta and a host of other journalists were injured by tear gas canisters while in the line of duty. And as NTV's Sydney Chazima now reports, the attacks on journalists appear to be a well-choreographed scheme aimed at scaring away the media from covering the protests.
In a fresh round of attacks, which appear to be deliberately aimed at journalists covering the Azimio One Kenya anti-government protests. NTV's camera person, Eric Isinta, was left bleeding profusely after a tear gas canister was fired in his direction, hitting his face. Isinta, through the help of his colleagues, was rushed to the hospital where he received medical attention.
Kufika hapa before tukuja kujeni kwa barabara kwa main highway, tear gas ikaanza kutupwa. Zikatupwa. Moja ikakuwa too much, sasa tusioni mbele juu tumejaza, so nilikuwa na gas mask na ile helmet. Ikaingia paka kwa gas mask. Ikabidi nimetoa. Nilikuwa nimevaa ile bulletproof. Moja ilipigwa ikagonga hii helmet. Kaingia hapa ndani. Ikaingia kama jalipuka. So ni have to because ianza kuchoma. Hata mimi nilichoma, ukiangalia hapa by the way nimechoma hapa hivi side. Nimechomeka hapa. So nikaitoa before ichunge, nikaitupa nje. Hiyo ndio nikitoa hiyo nyingine nikasikia mimi nimekuja pa. Ikanigonga, hasa ndio maana imepiga impact.
But it is not just Isinta who was affected. KTN camera person Timon Abuna also found himself in trouble, sustaining injuries on his head. In Kisumu, Citizen TV's Dismas Nabiswa, caught in between confrontations between the police and rioting goons, was also left injured. Speaking moments after their entourage was forced to take a detour to Karen, Raila Odinga alongside Kalonzo Musyoka have hit out at the government, terming the attacks on journalists as an affront to media freedom.
It is very unfortunate that in the whole of these skirmishes, the media is being targeted seriously for attack. The other day and even today, several journalists have been injured, very seriously injured today by tear gas canisters which have been thrown.
They crossed the red line, basically. We also noticed that the media were a serious target. Yeah, when we were turning around, because we had hoped that after dispersing the crowd, at least it would allow us to go ahead, but that's when Raila Odinga's car came under serious barrage.
Since the commencement of the anti-government protests, journalists have been on the receiving end of violent attacks and intimidation from the police and violent goons while in the line of duty. And while journalists shoulder the responsibility of fairly informing the masses, their safety as well as of those demonstrating should be held paramount. Sydney Chazima, NTV.
Speaking of red lines, shock has gripped the Azimio Umoja One Kenya coalition after what appeared to be an attempt on the life of their leader Raila Odinga last evening. Odinga, who'd just been forced to abandon his anti-government protests at Pipeline, claims to have been directly shot at least 7 times at the southern bypass as his convoy made its way to Karen. Here is NTV's Ibrahim Karanja.
If this vehicle was not armored, this particular one here would have gotten him. Live bullet and this one as well.
The marks on Raila Odinga's vehicle after leading anti-government protests in Nairobi Thursday have sent chills down the spines of the Azimio leadership and their supporters. This is around 5 p.m. Thursday in Nairobi as Odinga's convoy came to its first rest of the day following a day of protests that were largely calm and only turned violent when the protesters came across a police barricade while joining the eastern bypass from Mukuru kwa Njenga and Kware slums.
Deliberately throwing tear gas. I do not know whether 20 or how many canisters were thrown at Baba's car and directly at the many cars, including mine, that the windscreen was it's shattered, but it's still on.
Because there's no reason why police should use this kind of force against unarmed citizens.
Enough is indeed enough. I will not allow them to get this far. They crossed the red line, basically.
What followed was a rough ride with police officers stationed almost everywhere, lobbing tear gas canisters at Odinga's convoy. and at some point employed the use of live ammunition, targeting all vehicles. The situation worsened on the southern bypass from the Ole Sereni Hotel towards Karen as a police Land Cruiser hot on the heels of the convoy consistently fired at the entourage. Other leaders, including Wiper's Kalonzo Musyoka and NARC Kenya's Martha Karua, had their vehicles caught up in the melee.
This is an obvious assassination attempt. Look at where they are aiming. It is back left, where they know that our leader would be sitting. And you can see if they can't get the head, they are trying anywhere they can get.
This is our motherland. We do not have another country. Yes. And if the Constitution gives us the freedom to demonstrate peaceably, why would they want to kill us? There's no doubt in our mind that they've determined they want to kill some of us.
The Azimio leadership expressing its consternation with the happenings, even as they insist that next Monday's protests are still on until their demands are met. Ibrahim Karanja, NTV.
Meanwhile, it was another day of running battles in Mathare and Kibra on the first day of Thursday's mass protests. The anti-riot police fired several tear gas canisters to contain and disperse the protesters. NTV's political affairs reporter Vincent Odor was on the ground.
For the better part of the day, Mathare slum was converted into a battleground between anti-riot police officers and Azimio supporters in the third round of protests to call for the lowering of the high cost of living, rejection of President William Ruto's government, and salvage what Azimio leader Raila Odinga has termed as his stolen 2022 presidential victory. The police used tear gas and clubs to try and contain the protesters in Mathare, as a section of youth countered them, using stones and even returning to the police their very own tear gas canisters they managed to intercept midway. But after a bruising battle, a section of Mathare residents, largely women, approached the anti-riot police negotiating for peace. The women were begging the police to stop lobbing tear gas in the area since it was affecting their children. But after a brief calm, the police and the other protesters engaged in what they know best: tear gas and stones. On the other side of the city, sections of Kibra slum were also suffocating under tear gas as the police and a group of youth countered each other. Police officers thwarted efforts by the protesters to get to the city using Ngong Road or through Langata constituency. But Kibra was largely peaceful. However, for the better part of the day, businesses in the slum remained shut, even as a group of looters unsuccessfully tried to target some of the businesses in the area. Vincent Odur, NTV.
The negotiations for a truce between Kenya Kwanza and Azimio la Umoja seems to be hitting rock bottom despite shuttle diplomacy attempts by the US government. Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua accuses Odinga of running a selfish agenda aimed at securing a handshake and not the challenges facing the country. Gachagua also says that President William Ruto will only be available for talks to discuss Odinga's exit from politics. With more is Kevin Mutai.
Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua continued to fire salvos at the leader of Azimio la Umoja coalition Raila Odinga, claiming that the opposition chief is using demonstrations to push for a coalition government.
We have told our international partners who are pushing us to sit with Raila Odinga. We have told church leaders who are telling us to sit with Raila Odinga that we are willing to sit with him, but not to discuss his forceful entry into government.
This hard stance comes barely a day after the second-in-command held a meeting with Senator Christopher Coons from Delaware in the United States. The conversation centered on calling for truce between President Ruto and Odinga, but failed to reach a consensus. The U.S. Senator later on the same day met Odinga in an effort to urge him to call off anti-government protests and give dialogue a chance. Reports now indicate that there's a plan by the U.S. to reach out to former President Uhuru Kenyatta in order to quell the tension.
You have been very unfair to this country. It's about time you made a decision and come sit down with the President William Ruto and discuss one agenda only: your exit from the Kenyan political space and permanent retirement.
But even as Azimio vows to go on with mass protests, President William Ruto, while away in Belgium, noted that he remains undeterred and will crack the whip on all those wreaking havoc in the country in the name of exercising their democratic right to demonstrate.
What is going on in Kenya is the usual challenges of democracy, where people want to challenge the rule of law.
Kenya held what many analysts and commentators say was the freest, fairest, most credible election in Kenyan history. The election was observed by international and local election organizations and upheld by the Supreme Court of the Republic of Kenya. Power was transferred orderly and peacefully.
The U.S. government is concerned over the country's economy, which it says is under threat because of the impasse between the opposition and the state. Kevin Mutai, NTV.
All right, on that note, allow me to introduce my panelists and get us into the dailies and our discussion on the state of the nation. I'll start with Newton Hamasi. He is the spokesman, DP, Democratic Party. Karibu sana. Sitting next to him is Kidi Mwaga, governance and policy expert. Karibu, Kidi. And Joseph Chege, Azimio youth leader, political analyst. Karibu sana. All right, so front page of the Daily Nation, one word: outrage. 6 journalists were seriously injured in yesterday's protests, including NTV's very own Eric Isinta. The insanity continued on the 3rd day of anti-government protests led by Azimio la Umoja One Kenya chief Raila Odinga, with journalists bearing the brunt of police brutality. Several people were injured, businesses looted, and property of unknown value destroyed as protests degenerated into chaos. I'll start with you, Kidi. Does this sink us further into a sort of miasma, this attack on journalists by the police?
Thank you, Eli, for having me on the show. And it is good to see my 2 brothers, who, of course, are, I do not know why I'm in the middle, because I know my brother Hamasi is still very loyal to the government and Kenya Kwanza. And I know my brother in arms, Ndugu Majuis, is still a diehard of Baba, while yours truly is in neither of the political formations. But well, I will say this.
Sit somewhere in the middle.
I will say this, that a free press is one of the sure guardrails that ensures that a democracy never slips into anarchy. Because it is the journalists, especially brave ones like the one we see at Nation Media House, who then, beam the spotlights on the eccentricities and the excesses of the state. Part of why that is important is that when those eccentricities are, exposed, then the citizens are then able to defend themselves against a rogue state. And one of the weapons that the Constitution in a democracy gives the citizens is now the right to recall the mandate that they are given to the governing officials, and then to be able to express that mandate directly. For instance, with the level of violence we are seeing, we expect that we need to receive a report from the Inspector General of Police. We need to get a comment from the Cabinet Secretary for Interior on including, among other things, measures they have taken to make sure that individual officers and their commanders who are able to condone such level of violence against unarmed journalists, that a sufficient punishment is meted. There is also a reason why we had institutions like IPOA. But I will also hasten to add that, institutions, especially Chapter 15 commissions that we established under the Constitution, have by and large been a letdown. I hope that IPOA is going to seize this opportunity to make sure that Kenyans can trust it to, sufficiently supervise the police. Thank you very much.
All right. I'm just, as you were speaking, I was in the process of pulling up my Twitter account.
Yes.
Because I want to see if overnight the National Police Service or the Ministry of Interior released a statement. But as I do that, Newton, this comes on the backdrop because if we look at this front page image, you can see the tear gas canister being lobbed into the vehicle. So the events that led up to that, clearly you can see that this vehicle had speakers or has speakers on top, right? And then on top of these speakers were the journalists, and they were ahead of the convoy, the Raila Odinga convoy. So the reason they were sat atop this vehicle and the speakers was to ensure that they get crisp sound. You want to hear what the leaders are saying, and you want to be in front of them, and then you want to have a team behind them, which is what happened. So they were clearly identified as press on account of the press jackets they were wearing. They had cameras, and if you just look at the sequence of images, and I'll open the Daily Nation and see whether they captured that sequence of events. They were at a choke point. I don't know whether you're familiar with the term choke point. And these were clearly police officers, two of whom were civilian, dressed in civilian, and were carrying guns. And one of whom was the gentleman you can see here firing into this vehicle, was also lobbing stones, throwing stones at a certain point in time. So what do you make of that type of force? Is it excessive in your view?
First of all, thank you so much, Olive, for having me here today. And I'm grateful to God for the gift of life. And just to start with, I would like just to pass my condolences and my sorry to the 14 people who were killed in the Naivasha varsity bus, the Pwani University bus that involved itself in an accident in Naivasha. May the families get the strength to overcome that pain that comes with this, and urge the NTSA to act on these particular ravages so that we can have a safe road for everyone. Secondly, on the point of whatever you're mentioning about the media being attacked and all that, I don't believe the media was being attacked. If you look at that car very clearly, Olive, you will notice that the number plates...
I have found the sequence of events, page 7.
Yes. If you look at that particular Prado, so to say, that had speakers on top, if you look at the number plate, first of all, it is tampered with.
Sorry, it is what?
It is tampered with. It is not, yes, if you check very well.
Sorry, I didn't catch that word.
It is tampered with.
Tampered with?
Yes. If you check very clearly, that is not the number plate of that car. So this is a criminal element in this particular story. And as we look at it from this angle, let us also look at it from the other side. And I'm trying to be objective in this way. Because, you see, you cannot call an illegal demonstration, Olive, and in the same still process, you use cars that don't have identifiable number plates. If you look at this car, from my own view, these are KDD 233.
So, Newton, let me ask you.
But if you check on it, just a minute, I'm coming to that conclusion. But if you check at it, it has been changed to be KBB. What was the intention of doing that? And I believe, probably, I might be wrong, I might be right, that the police were acting on intelligence in news or information, so that they thought probably in this particular car, they are criminals because they are trying to hide in it. On the other flip side, in regards to the journalists who were attacked, it is so unfortunate that at this particular age and time, we are having police officers who are maybe rogue.
Sorry, we're having police officers?
Who are rogue, who are attacking or using excessive force on the people they are supposed to protect. attacking a journalist is something of the past.
So can I just get you clearly?
Yes.
Are you saying this was warranted because the number plate was tampered with?
No, I'm not saying it was warranted. I'm saying, first of all, the fact that the number plate of that car was tampered with, that is a criminal element. Let us agree on that. Then on the other bit, I'm saying the occupants of this car. Let's say, let's give an assumption on the highways when the police officers stop you and the car is has a different number plate than the original number plate. What is the first response the police will have?
You stop the vehicle.
Exactly.
So you don't fire.
No, what if the people inside that particular car are armed?
Tear gas canisters.
What if the people inside that car are armed?
At Newton, I am just, you are defying my logic. How I'm looking at it. And yes. Joseph, I also want you to come in at this point. Yes. Police are permitted to use force in cases of imminent danger. Yes. Explain to me in this sequence of events, who has pointed a firearm at the police? Point out a picture here, where one of the journalists, and of course I have interest, I am a journalist, so you will allow me on this one to take sides, and I will take the side of the journalists. Show me who here, which journalist here, is aiming a stone at the police.
You see, I've not...
To justify I've not
said...
the use of this level of force.
No, I've not said that the force that was used in this particular scenario was directed at the journalist. The journalists just found themselves in the wrong place.
Joseph,
yeah, that is the fact.
Joseph, your thoughts on this one?
Thank you, Oliver, for having me on the show. But
thank you for coming.
I'm surprised by what my friend is trying to insinuate. Because we have been having a government that wants to claw back the media freedom that we have been having in this country for a very long time. Kenyans have fought for the media to have this freedom. When a journalist in Sinta says that 3 tear gas canisters were directly robbed at him directly, he's not mad. He's not making things up. The police came, and instead of robbing tear gas canisters to the demonstrators, they attacked him, the journalist, directly, injuring his face. In fact, they were after his life. Because if you see how he was pissed, I can tell you, if there were no people around to save his life, this journalist was going to die. In fact, I want to say congratulations to the media for braving to go and cover the Azimio protest and Mandamanos when the government had made it clear that they wanted to cage the media, not to cover. It's the High Court, it's our judiciary that came to the rescue of the media. We have a government here that does not recognize the role of the media, and if possible, the government can shut the media, because that's what they are showing us. And I want to say, the media people, the journalists in this country, they should issue a statement. If police and the interior are not going to issue the statement, if the IG of police is not going to issue a statement about it, the media today should combine and make a statement about and maybe file a case to the international. Maybe if you guys have a body for journalism in the world, because in Kenya you will not have any person to talk on your behalf. The other day we saw even some journalists, one of the senior members of the KK government, majority leader, threatening a media in the air that I will walk out if you don't give me time to talk. And the prisoner told him, you are the one who told us to invite you on the show. You don't go to the show and start threatening media. It is the people who don't see the media as people in this country are all doing their job. They want to cage them. And it's the high time the media to be brave and tell this government that we have fought for the media freedom in this country for a long time. The last time we saw this was during the KANU era, dictatorial era. In Mwai Kibaki's time, we never had anywhere the government wanted to cage the media. In Uhuru's government time, we have anywhere government wanted to cage the media. It is this government, when they took office, their mandate was to make sure that the media does not represent the views fairly to the Kenyans. Thank you.
But you know that the head of the previous government did say magazeti ni ya kufunga nyama.
He said that, but you know, I can have an opinion, but I don't directly attack the media. I can even say something here, but I don't directly attack the media. But when even the deputy president of the Republic of Kenya says that, obviously, that you media people, you are so biased, what is telling the juniors?
Okay.
Yeah.
Hidi, what do you think this is an escalation of the messaging that has been coming from the House on the Hill by way of, he's mentioned the deputy president. The deputy president has made disparaging remarks with regard to the media. We saw Aaron Cheriot tweet that media and banks are cartels. We saw even the majority leader, Kimani Ichung'wah, in his tweets, apart from his appearance on Citizen TV with my colleague Wahiga, insinuate the same thing, that the majority, so this is the majority leader in the national, this is the deputy president, majority leader in the National Assembly, majority leader in the Senate. On the back of that, we had the Communication Authority after the first Maandamano Monday, which was on March the 20th, threatened the licenses of privately owned broadcasters for airing the Maandamano from start to finish, as it were, right? And if it was not for the court order, we don't know how that would have gone. And on top of that, we had the DCI publish and verified images that put the lives of photojournalists at risk, because this Monday we saw journalists being targeted not just by the police, who forced some to delete the images they shot, but also by protesters who are afraid to have their faces exposed, and possibly that could lead to their arrest. On the back of all these events, do you view this and that, and I've checked the Twitter handle of the National Police Service, there has been no response. Do you view this as sinister?
Before I respond to your question, my brother has said that this kind of violence is only reminiscent of the KANU days. I must hasten to remind him that his party leader was one of the immediate former chairman of KANU, and his presidential candidate, of course he was our presidential candidate before I left Azimio, was also one of the secretary generals of KANU. So when you mention KANU, which is a subsisting political party, in that light, I think you are being unfair to KANU. You should speak of the KANU fresh of today. But well, Olive, in responding to your question, we have in the past 2 weeks gone to very dangerous levels in terms of both flirting and cuddling with both anarchy and lawlessness. Because this is what happens, that there is a reason why it is only in the autocracies where we have state-owned medias and they are only the only ones permitted to operate. But even when in the worst of those autocracies, you realize that the media is given, privately owned media, are given some level of leverage to operate. Even in the KANU days that my brother Majus finds very convenient to refer to, you realize that there were privately owned media houses, one of them being the Nation Media Group, and they were permitted to operate. I think that when a state is rogue, or when there is excessive use of force, I think that excessive use of force must be called out. I am actually perturbed that my brother, who is a very young man with a very bright and long future in politics, finds this something that he can tolerate. I think as a young person right in the heart of government, he should be able to call this out. Because if, let's for argument's sake, say that the number plate was changed, that does not in any way, and you see in that photo, the police officer is pushing, hitting the windscreen with his gun or something, and you are seeing other 2 police officers having their weapons pointed at that car. So the question is, that level of force used on that car that clearly has speakers on top of it, meaning that it is largely used by the press. I mean, is that use of force justifiable? That is why I think that this administration must conduct itself with restraint. Remember, I have said it before, that last elections was hotly contested, and the margin between the winner and the first runner-up was very slim. And its slimness notwithstanding, when governments get into office in moments of adversity, that adversity may be the high cost of living like we are experiencing now, that adversity may be unsettled political impasse that now we are seeing through the calls for, say, opening the server, reinstate Cherera 4. That is politics. That, of course, is getting its expression in this maandamano. The government must conduct itself with grace and restraint, because whereas they have got the legal license, the legal mandate to preside over our affairs, having gotten that mandate from the IEBC and confirmed by the Supreme Court, but then the people can easily, the disaffection of the people can easily rise when there is a feeling that that government is not acting in the best interest of the people. And the people may then want to challenge that government or act in a manner that suggests that they are slowly withdrawing their support for the government. This kind of violence against journalists is one of such acts that may make the people who say were willing to give the government a chance, because, you know, governance is not a cup of coffee, especially instant coffee. You don't get into office and then all over there is manna all everywhere for everyone. It takes time for the policies to be able to bear fruit, for those policies to begin having effect in people's pockets. That may take up to a year. And that is part of why, from the start, I was of the view that there should be a quiet diplomacy between the president and the prime minister. To this extent, so indirectly answering your question, this kind of intolerance towards the media is unjustified. Because if in a democracy we cannot have a free and independent press, then we have nothing else. We shall have lost everything else. Okay. So as people of Kenya, irrespective of our political affiliation, we must stand up for the freedom of the media, the freedom of the press, and the ability to have an environment where the media can be able to conduct their work without fear of reprisal from the state or from anyone else.
All right, so Newton, we need to take a break, but when we come back, we'll give you the opportunity to respond.
With Glovo, you have the city in your hands. Unatamani chakula different? Order Glovo ujaribu restaurant mpya. Diapers zimeisha? Order Glovo and save the day. Download the app and order anything you want.
We partner with communities across all 47 counties by advancing education, by enhancing healthcare, by supporting economic opportunities. Because when we unite, there's nothing we can't do.
My baby is famous for her happy dancing moves because she's always happy. What's the reason for this happiness? Molfix dryness. It's what all mothers dream of. Come on, mothers. Try Molfix baby diapers and be part of our happiness movement.
There was a directive to install public toilets on all Kenyan highways from like 3 years ago. And I'm sure kuna jamaa tu mahali anasikia story ya kujenga choo kwa barabara. Ako like, Kwani potholes ukuwa za nini?
I've raised her in the industry. Nikatoto kataenda shule kakuje kameambiwa kameonona kwa TV na everybody at 6 years. You're in class 1, right?
Yeah, 1.
Then akuja vunje sahani ya mamangu amame nitalipa ninalipangwa. Hey,
I used to be paid in my account, but she used to have a control of it till I was 18.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Na ulipata pesa yako vile ilikuwa?
Niwaambie.
That moment when you start to get back to ordinary, and ordinary feels amazing. Whatever pain you're going through, release starts here.
This accident is on you.
No, I didn't break any rules. If you're watching the road instead of talking on your phone, we wouldn't be wasting our time right now.
There is no sign here.
Your memories didn't go anywhere. They're still with you. We just need to find something, a person, a place, a smell, or a sound.
Please tell me the truth. Was I really that bad? You! What do you think you're doing? You're hanging around at nightclubs again? Are you so eager to have fun?
Why are you yelling, Anna?
Santon, a fun new world of flavor. Fruity freshness in every sip.
This is The Greatest Show. The London Marathon, 23rd April, live on NTV.
I can have my Gucci on. I can wear my Louis Vuitton.
You buy me to eat, but you never eat me. What am I? I think it's poison. 4 of you are friends, but
I've been to some gross places, but Frogmouth takes the cake.
Fairy hives can be trippy.
Run!
Tunaenda safari, tunaenda.
I'm going to show you how to make a crab.
Oh my goodness, this is amazing.
Santon, a fun new world of flavor. Fruity freshness in every sip.
All right, we're back with AM Live. I did promise Newton a chance to respond to the submissions by Kidimwaga as well as Joseph Chege. And on the break, Newton was saying, you know, with all that tear gas, perhaps a tear gas canister lost its way. The aim was off. But I was telling you that Eric Hisinta was hit 3 times.
Yes.
Moja labda ni nukes. Tatu.
Thank you so much, Oliver. I just want to disagree with my fellow panelist here. My thoughts were very clear. I personally, I don't agree with the kind of excessive force that was used against these particular demonstrators. And on this particular issue of media personalities being attacked, one, maybe moving forward so that we don't have to repeat the same mistakes that happen here and there. And I understand all these officers who are caught on camera doing the illegalities during this process of picketing and demonstration. They're supposed to be taken, an action needs to be taken to them personally. Everyone has to take personal responsibility. And it is so unfortunate. And I believe my friends here may be waved a bit, but my thoughts were very clear. It is unfortunate that we have such excessive force being vetted on demonstrators. And it is very clear. The police service is independent of any direction from any angle of this government. And you realize that the president himself was very categorical and said, I as the president have given the police the independence. If a police officer does a mistake, then they will take responsibility personally. And yes, I say that it is very unfortunate that the media personalities in this particular menace were attacked or were hit by the tear gas canisters. It is not a good thing, and we condemn it in the strongest terms possible. But in the same process, moving forward, so that we don't have this scenario of media has been attacked or the government is against the media, let us have a standard procedure whereby the media personalities dress up in media regalia so that they can be identified from a distance. And as well, they don't...
Did they do what?
They dress up in the media...
They were wearing press jackets. The press jackets, which are provided by the Media Council of Kenya. Eric Isinta, for a fact,
yes,
I know, was wearing a press jacket.
What about the others?
That clearly identifies him as press.
Exactly. So what I'm saying,
the others were as well.
What I'm suggesting is, when they wear those things, they should not mix and mingle with the protesters. Let them have their own particular vehicle in that particular demonstration, so that they are clearly identified as media persons. Because you see, you will have criminals wearing those jackets as well and going into those demonstrations. How do you expect the law enforcement officers to get this particular separation of this one is a genuine
okay,
journalist?
So the question arises for me is that,
yes,
so you're saying this, if they were not journalists, then this sort of force is merited? Even as civilians, as mimi na wewe tukitoka hapa nje, hapa chini Nation
yes,
Center,
yes,
tusipovaa press jacket,
yes,
would it be right?
It will, and I've been consistent on this show, Olive. I've said the excessive force that was used by few rogue cops in this particular incident, they should carry their own cross, their independent responsibility. And that has been my consistent thought in regards to whatever happened yesterday. And in the same spirit, I just want to say that as much as the Azimio guys want to continue with these demonstrations, it should be noted to them that it is only in peace that sons bury their fathers. And in war is when fathers bury their own sons. In this case scenario, the young people are being used badly. The young people are being pushed to do things that are not right, like engaging and provoking the police officers. Honestly speaking, in Homa Bay, is it Homa Bay or Siaya, you saw demonstrators taking over a police car, Land Cruiser, and driving it off. Yesterday, you saw some other, I call them hooligans, trying to chase away police officers on Outer Ring Road. And you expect these officers to react to you in a smiley face. Honestly, that is not going to happen in this time and era.
I can read Kidi and Joseph's faces, and I know they want to respond, but let me just quickly look at the other front pages. I'm looking at Taifa Leo. Taifa Leo reads, Raila akangumu apuuza amri ya Kindiki ya kutoandamana, viongozi wa kidini na seneta wa Amerika washindwa kumshawishi. An image there of Raila Odinga. Anda maandamano jijini na kuvaa magwada yanayokatazwa na waziri wa usalama. Maandamano pia yakifanyika Kisumu, Homa Bay na Siaya. I see here jaribio la kuvamia mali ya Uhuru la feli, and the details of that, because I'd also like us to comment on that as we discuss the state of the nation. Vijana waliokuwa na silaha tayari kuvamia ranchi ya Narok ya familia ya Kenyatta wazuiwa. Kidi, I believe we were discussing, you did mention this yesterday, and taking a look at the front page, and of course on the front page, and we haven't forgotten it on account of the political temperatures, as it were. But 14 people, and this is also on the front page of the Daily Nation, 14 people killed in Naivasha varsity bus and matatu crash. This was Pwani University. Newton did send his condolences at the very start. I'm sure Kidi and Joseph can agree on that, if nothing else. Taifa Leo also highlighted on the front page ni majonzi, wengi wakipoteza maisha, wengine wakijehuriwa katika ajali ya Nakuru. And then, so front page of the Standard now, the front page reads as such. It is protest chaos amid frantic calls for talks. At least one shot, several injured. Journalists hurt as police battle protesters. UDA CIA office torched. Businesses paralyzed amid looting in parts of Nairobi, Kisumu. Raila vows to press on. President jets back. Keeps off Azimio demands at investors forum, and pressure piles for talks. And they have an image here of where the attack on the journalists happened, the choke point, as it's referred to, and it reads, police confront opposition leader Raila Odinga's convoy in Embakasi, where they blocked him from proceeding to Jacaranda grounds during mass action called by Azimio la Umoja Coalition. And Raila shows inset, this smaller image here is of Raila showing what he described as bullet marks in his armored vehicle. These are photographs by Denish Ochieng and Raphael Njoroge. Raphael is also the one who provided us with the images you've seen on page 10 in sequential order of what transpired as far as this choke point is concerned. Front page of the Star, UDA office torched in bloody Azimio demos. Journalists injured during long violent opposition protests in Kisumu and Nairobi. I see here an image of my colleague Eric Isinta, two of them, the two in the center. NTV video journalists Eric Isinta, and you can see here, you are asking whether they were identified as press. You can see he's wearing, he clearly, the press jacket. NTV video journalist Eric Isinta and a colleague who were attacked by goons during the Azimio protest in Pipeline, Nairobi on Thursday. A KTN cameraman was also assaulted, and they have a very compelling image here as well. Fires on Outer Ring Road in Nairobi during Azimio protests on Thursday. So, and before I get us to attacks on Uhuru Kenyatta's properties, Kiddy, there's something the Standard headline highlights, that the protest chaos continues amid frantic calls for talks. How do you see this playing out? Because the Raila Odinga team has dug in. We had Rigathi Gachagua saying the only talks they're willing to have is on the retirement of Raila Odinga.
Yes.
As Kenyans, we are asking ourselves, okay, so now what?
You know, one of the mistakes that has been made, especially by the side that is in government to this extent, has been to imagine that anyone can dictate Raila's exit from politics. You know, such arrogance has got a potential of actually emboldening him to stay on and even to wreak havoc from within. And by wreaking havoc, I am using it colloquially in the context of, you know, presenting political headache to the government. It is President Lyndon B. Johnson who, when asked about his then chairman of the CIA, then Edgar Herbert Hoover, he said that it is better having Edgar Hoover within his administration when he's pissing outside than when he's outside the administration and he's peeing inside the tent. You know, Baba has cultivated his support base over time, and it is one of the most organic support any politician has enjoyed this side of the tropics. So that, for instance, when you see direct attempts, or what appears to be direct attempts on the life of Baba, it is going to be a game changer in these ongoing demos, because even people who are centrist, people who have not been persuaded about the need why we should have a demonstration in the first place, may say, wait a minute, if this government is this, you know, using this excessive force, then I think it does not deserve the benefit of the doubt that it has enjoyed from us previously. And so, to answer your question, how is this going to play out? Number one, I must point out that we all have only one country, as Kalonzo Musyoka pointed out last evening. And it is also something I have mentioned in this show, that I believe that President William Ruto loved this country equally as Prime Minister Raila Odinga also loves this country. Prime Minister Raila Odinga has demonstrated before that he loved this country so much so that he has been willing to step down from, high political horse when it is necessary in the interest of the country. And President William Ruto has also conducted himself with grace. You must give it to him, since he was elected in office. I personally come from a region that did not vote for President William Ruto, and I am one of the people who did not vote for him. But you see, when he was coming to our backyard for the first time, he came with a coherent development agenda and engaged the elected leaders from our region. When he came back again, of course, it was in the midst of all these maandamano manenos. But I will also tell you that the president was very gracious when he was speaking to our people. You look at President William Ruto and you see someone who is ready and willing to build a country for all of us. And because how government is formed is clearly stipulated in the Constitution, to this extent, we have a government in office. I don't think that continued belligerence by the opposition, and particularly by the opposition, that Zakayo lazima utashuka and such calls, I think if you ask me, I would say they are asinine. Why do I call them asinine? The question of the cost of living cannot be resolved in the streets. Ultimately, the leaders will need to sit down and find a way forward. One of the contributors of the high cost of living, for instance, Olive, is what is called...
And Kidi, before you get into the contributors, but to be fair, Azimio has... That is what Azimio wants to do. You're saying the cost of living question cannot be resolved in the streets.
Yes.
They're looking to have a dialogue. But Raila Odinga said the other side is not willing to come to the table. So it is not that they're trying to resolve the issue of the cost of living on the streets. They're simply trying to demonstrate to this administration that the situation is urgent. You cannot ask us to give you more time when people are going hungry today. Yes.
Olive, you see in 2013, when President Uhuru Kenyatta and his then deputy William Ruto were elected into office, after some time before the government was formed, we saw the president and Raila Odinga, Kalonzo Musyoka, and Moses Wetangula going to have lunch with then president and deputy president-elect at the home of one of the political players in this country. And that had the net effect of de-escalating the tension of the elections. That is something that should have happened now. To this extent, the Azimio leadership have not come out to formally see the ground to that the elections were conducted and we have people who are declared winners and that they have got that mandate. Except, initially we were told that Baba had instructed leaders from Luo Nyanza to welcome the president. And if you remember the Senior Counsel Orengo's speech in CII said that the president and the prime minister need to sit down on the table of brotherhood, not on the table of handshake. Sentiments that I identify with. Why is this necessary? It is necessary because it then gives an environment where a bipartisan approach to issues is possible. But then immediately Baba came from South Africa, we were told that there was the whistleblower, and then it is from that point that everything then began to have a downward spiral to where we are today. I still think that these leaders must appreciate that when there is this impasse and the people are on the streets, the people who suffer the most are the citizens. And for Baba, Raila Odinga, it is even more worse because it is his core support base that hurts the most. Baba has always been supported by people who have been left out and left behind. That is why if you go to the Kibras of this world, the Madaris of this world, those are Baba's people. And when there is the disruption of the local supply chain, when people are unable to go to their businesses and make a living, it is Baba's supporters who hurt the most. I want to appeal with both principles, that is the President and the Prime Minister, to get off high political horses and reach out to one another in the spirit of brotherhood, because we all only have one country, so that there is a speedy resolution to this impasse and that Kenya can move forward. Okay. Thank you.
Going off of what Kidi has submitted, Joseph, is it reasonable to expect the Kenya Kwanza administration to sit down with a party that has not even recognized its legitimacy, and it has said, therefore, we will not negotiate our legitimacy?
Aristotle once said that it's a mark of an educated mind to entertain a thought without necessarily accepting it. So the Kenya Kwanza government should just entertain the thought that a time will come they will be forced to sit down with Baba and the Azimio Brigade. The Deputy President should entertain a thought. It is coming. I want to say this. When this government was formed, it took 6 months for Raila Amolo Odinga to start the demonstrations. The demonstration did not start immediately. And in those 6 months, it is the Kenyans who started asking, where is our Raila? Because the subsidies, children were going to school. The subsidies were removed. The subsidies that were helping the poor people. The other day you saw a 14-year-old kid committing suicide because he was sent away to go and collect school fees. Maybe in that kid's mind, he was going to a home to collect school fees where maybe they are sleeping hungry. He could not take it anymore. He took his life. The government had put those subsidies to help these poor families. You saw the TIFA the other day saying that about 8.5 million Kenyans are going to bed hungry. The government that was there had put something called Kazi Mtaani. This government came and it never recognized the Kazi Mtaani again. We had all over the country, the youths working. If you go right now to Kirinyaga, it is the highest hit by cases of suicide. People are taking their lives because the depression is real in this country. It is not Raila who started the demonstration. People asked, where is Raila? The taxes have gone up. This government has taken loans. If you go now, there are over 1 trillion, not even a single project to show for it. You just see State House being renovated. I think 1 billion for maybe 3 people's vehicles, maybe 5 million tea in the State House. You see, we have a very heartless government that is not looking at the people they say they are going to look upon. And that's why you see, anytime Raila Odinga comes out, he's followed by very many people. And especially if you look at Raila Odinga's Amandamano of late, they are being attended by women. Because these are the people who are carrying the burden of the children they cannot be able to feed, of the children who are at home because of school fees, and so many other things. So I want to correct my brother that Raila Amolo Odinga, it's not about the whistleblower or something. It is about the Kenyans, people who are suffering most, and the taxes that have gone up without this regime showing for it. Had they maybe told us this is what they are doing with the taxes they are taking, that is okay. From tomorrow, that will be fast. We are having the Kenya Power revising the tariffs. And I don't think if Kenyans can be able to use electricity anymore. I had a boda who dropped me here, who was telling me nowadays he used to have 100 shillings to have the tokens for a week. Nowadays he's doing it 300. So he was telling me, when you go to the show, try asking the government, are we going to afford a meal or we are going to afford the light for our children even to do the homework? The junior secondary school, I can tell you right now, and those teachers can confirm, there is no education that is going on at all. There are no teachers, there are no facilities, there is nothing. This government is just a government that is politicking day and night. If these people has this country at heart, what they should do, what will it gain for a man to have all this country, to be a president, to be a deputy, a majority leader, and we lose souls and people. We lose journalists being hit by canister. What will it gain for a man? Let the president and the Kenya Kwanza regime knows that there is a country called Kenya, and all of us will come and go and leave Kenya. Let's have a dialogue how these things are going to be addressed, and it will be okay. We will continue as a country. But this thing of saying that Raila Mandamano, anytime Raila had maandamano, it has been for the best interest of this country. Name it from 1992, when we had maandamano about multi-party. The media, the freedom we are enjoying today is because somebody somewhere stood, risked his life for those maandamano. If you look at the top leadership of this country, when the 1992 was happening, maandamano, Raila was fighting for the freedom of the media, the multi-party. The leadership of this country that time were against the people in this country. What I'm still saying is Joseph. This. Let me finish. Let me finish. Look, tell me one point at a time. Raila Odinga just came up with maandamano for no apparent reason. There is none. And it's the people who usually call for these maandamanos.
You have rejoined Kidi.
Let me mention something briefly. I am alive to the fact to the fact that my brother Newton should come in.
Yes.
You know, political affiliation notwithstanding, we have the cardinal responsibility to speak the truth. And my brother is, of course, saying that this administration has hiked taxes. It must be noted out that part of the high taxes we are experiencing now is on account of the Finance Bill 2018 that has now taken effect, that took effect in January 2023. And this administration, since it came into office, it has not passed any finance bill. So I do not know why my brother would make such, allegations and with a straight face. Secondly, the issue of maandamano, because he has said it, that it is in the, and I think it is a blackmail, especially one of the media and two of the people who are supporting maandamano. Because when you say that maandamano is not in the best interest of those that have been left at the base of the pyramid, you are being told that even the right to say that right now is because Raila Odinga demonstrated. I want to put it to the people of Kenya that part of the maandamano, or the reasons for maandamano, is the call for opening servers, reinstatement of Cherera 4, and it is called electoral justice. We were here in 2018, and trust me, Olive, during that time, we also lost lives. But then we said that let us lose a few lives if that would help us have a better country. What the maandamano of 2018, dubbed People's Assemblies, led us to was the now famous or infamous March 9th handshake. And remember, during that time, we were saying we had a reducible minimum. So I think that because in 2018, we were able to use young Kenyans as expendable political cannon fodder. This time round, with everything else prevailing, I would still want to ask my brother to ask the leaders within the Azimio coalition that let them give a dialogue a chance with the president, so that the question of electoral justice, if there is need to reform, I believe there is need to reform the IEBC to this extent, that the IEBC Act, as was entered by the president, gives the president or the ruling coalition a much more unfettered power that is unnecessary in going into elections. If anything, it will be a recipe for more chaos and anxiety in 2027. In the best interest of the country, he may want to reopen that and have a dialogue, a conversation with this other side, and then they agree on what reforms need to be done, as it happened in 2016. But then saying that, for instance, that the taxes are high on account of this administration, it must be pointed out, has not affected any finance bill. Secondly, I was saying before that one of the things that push up the cost of living is what is called the government target on inflation. Today, our target on inflation stands at 7.5%. So at best, because we have institutions, we are a democracy, for heaven's sake. What we should have seen from Majui's side is, say, seeing the leader of minority Opiyo Wandayi, summoning the CS for Treasury to explain why that percentage is not, say, 5%, why it is not 2%, why government in its own motion is pushing up the cost of living by 7.5%. Okay. Thank you.
And Newton, I want you to respond. I saw you shaking your head, but Joseph, just a point to note. You're talking about people who live in glass houses should not throw stones. And you're talking about associating Raila Odinga and press freedom. And I appreciate that he condemned yesterday's brutality, but he's the same one who called for the boycott of the Star. And I believe in 2017 it was the Nation which was the target. In fact, I think the Star is still in their feelings, because I've been looking at the headlines and there appears to be a determination to give Raila Odinga a wide berth. Newton, your thoughts?
Olive, I just first of all want to tell my friend Joseph here that the first time Raila Amolo Odinga has been wrong is now.
Sorry, the first time Raila Odinga has been?
Wrong.
Wrong.
In all his actions of Mandamano is now. Reason being, I remember last year, just after the free, fair and credible elections of August 9th, on this show, I said Raila risks to go down the trenches of history as a selfish leader if he opts to reject the results of this election. And that is what he's doing, in a very precedented manner. And I said this on this show 6 months ago, that Raila Amolo Odinga risks going down the trenches of history as a very selfish leader. And on this issue of talks, the only talks that the Kenya Kwanza government is willing to do is the talks between the government and the Kenyan people. And if you look what the leadership of Kenya Kwanza government has done, that is the President William Ruto. One, he's focused on empowering the small traders. Look at the impacts of the Hustler Fund. They are very beautiful, successful stories down there. Look at the plan that he has for creating jobs. If you look since he was sworn in, he has been able to convince investors to come to this country, starting with the Taifa Gas in the Mombasa region. Honestly, that is the fact. How many jobs is that industry going to create? Including yesterday, the Moderna plant that is going to be constructed. A close approximate of 70 billion is going to be injected in that particular project. How many jobs is it going to create? This is a president who cares for the people. And that is why we are saying, as Kenya Kwanza government, the government is going to have a conversation with the people. Raila Amolo Odinga has some selfish interests that is not projecting. Yesterday...
But Newton, isn't Raila Amolo Odinga a Kenyan?
He is a Kenyan, yes.
William Ruto is willing to have talks with the Kenyan people. Is Raila Amolo Odinga not a Kenyan? And is he not somebody possessed of a wealth of experience?
He's possessed, and that is what I'm saying. You see, when you stay at the stage for too long, you lose your credibility. And right now, it is that moment that Raila Amolo Odinga has lost his credibility. Because honestly, why would he go looking for... You know, in politics, we say people look for a leader. The leader doesn't come looking for his people. But what we have seen for the last 3 days that he has held Mandamano, Raila leaves his home with Kalonzo, with Martha Karua. They go to those particular slums.
But isn't that the same thing Kenya Kwanza did when they were on the campaign trail?
Yes, that was a campaign trail.
Homes,
that was a campaign trail. But are we campaigning right now? Are we in an electioneering period right now? We are not. And if you look very critically, this is a man who is trying to force his agenda to the people of Kenya.
In fact,
and the people of Kenya have refused.
In fact, your Kenya Kwanza KK leader, William Ruto, went so far as to be nicknamed by the president Tanga.
No, that was just a political statement because they had gone into a marriage through the handshake.
No, let him finish and then I'll come.
You get me? That is just a communication that was done because the president had gone into a handshake with the current Mandamano leader. Because that is what Raila Amolo Odinga is right now. He's a Mandamano leader, of which that is something that is really, really, really bringing him down. If there are talks that we are supposed to have, honestly, Olive, are the talks of the people who wanted to subvert the will of the people at Bomas of Kenya on 15th. When the chairman...
Why have we not had those talks? Why is your side not initiating audit?
No, we cannot initiate because that is not the responsibility of the government. One thing that you need to note...
You can't make claims on public fora and then not now take steps, remedial steps.
Some of the steps that have been taken, you can note very clearly that the rogue commissioners, there is a Kenyan who petitioned parliament and the due process was followed and those commissioners went home. Those are some of the activities that were done. There are some that remain untouched.
And that is why we are saying, if there are talks to be done, why is Raila Amolo Odinga so hell-bent to have the servers opened? What has he done to the servers? Because that is a communication we need to tell. You cannot come 7 months down the line, Olive, and claim that your victory is in the servers.
For the sake of argument,
yes,
if this election was not stolen, what is the big deal?
No, the big deal is, I
appreciate that the president was a candidate and therefore had no business to do with servers.
Exactly. You see, he had no anything to do with servers, and right now as we speak, the IBC commission is not there. So even if the Maandamano leader is busy telling Kenyans that, oh, we want the server opens, what has he done to the servers in the first place? Because this is not a straightforward thing. If he had access to the servers,
would he be asking for...
You see, the president doesn't have access to the servers. The commission of IBC is the one that has access to the servers. Right now as we speak, the rogue commission has resigned. They are not there. Those who completed their time, they are not there. So the best and the most wise thing that Raila Amolo Odinga can do is to let his team in Bunge to nominate the member of the IBC selection panel. We have an IBC panel and an IBC commission constituted, and then after it has been constituted, he takes his grievances of opening the server to that commission. Because right now, you're dragging the president into this conversation, and the president has nothing at all to do with this particular thing. Okay. And therefore, we are just telling Raila Amolo Odinga, follow the law. And in the same olive, I just want to comment that Article 37 of the Constitution, in regards to the picketing and demonstrations, I believe it is about time that the governor of Nairobi and the Kenya Kwanza government tries to restate the Uhuru Park Gardens for purposes of maandamano and picketing. Because right now what we are seeing, Raila is busy distracting businesses and private enterprises in this city. Because we probably, at this moment, we don't have a central place where he can go, picket, and do all the demonstrations that he wants, and deliver the petition to the offices that he wants. Okay. And therefore, it is a challenge to the county government of Nairobi to constitute a team or maybe revert the Uhuru Park to be back to the people, so that when such mandamanos happen, we don't see Raila going, oh, to Mathare, oh, the next day he's going to Imaradaima, the next day he's going to, I don't know where, to Westlands or this place for Westlands. Exactly, you got me, in search of state house. We need to address this issue of enabling Article 37 of the Constitution, so that we can have a central place whereby when they are picketing, they are not infringing on the right of others.
Okay.
And we are not going to risk having journalists being attacked by stray canisters of tear gas.
You know, really one doesn't have anything to do with the other. We take a break. When we come back, Joseph, I will give you a chance to respond.
Pesa basi. Kutoka hapa na sisi kazi. Siwezi niko wax. Awe sare bana. Awe gabe bana.
Wendo gabe.
Ndio mimi.
Kevo ameniambia nikushow uende ile stage ya Mpambe.
Oya bana, bila acha story mingi, ruka nyuma.
Of flavor, fruity freshness in every sip.
God is always engaged in our affairs. He's engaged in your life. He's engaged in the life of our community. He's engaged in the life of our church. He's engaged in the life of our nation.
This week on The Trend, we take you to the gospel according to Guardian Angel and Hope Kid. We get to celebrate and hang out with kids with autism. The Real Housewives of Nairobi have just added the cherry on the cake. Dr. Masitsa makes a debut on the show. I'm impressed. Get to learn some moves from the Crackers dance group. On the socials, Osoro on the Dex DJE, hosted by Amina Abdi Rabah. The Trend only on NTV this Friday from 10 p.m.
Cascadia Apartments at Two Rivers Development in Nairobi with an Easter offer of 500,000 shillings discount. Price start from 9.2 million. Call us today on 0742 342 722 or text Cascadia to 22365.
Hey yo, what's up going Republicans? It's the Trendsetter right here. Now we are super excited because we are switching things up on this week's episode of Teen Republic. We are bidding the month of March goodbye and ushering April in style. That is why in studio tutakuwa naye Masa Uti. Not forgetting guys, an amazing surprise guest. Yes, you guessed it right because it's a new month of April. Kikosi kizima pia kitakuwa in the building. That is Aziza Hashim, the media messiah, the digital maestro, Aina Mumaita, na mcheza santuri wetu on the ones and twos, DJ Rick Mo.
I'm hoping you're okay, we got to party tonight. Many just stay from
Teen Republic in association with Fanta.
What's over? Busy biters, get down to snack business. When snacking is under attack, we'll be there to fight back.
This week on Daring Abroad, we take you to Azerbaijan as we feature Steve Chumba, the general manager of one of the top global hotel chains in Azerbaijan.
Coming to Azerbaijan, it was something that I had never imagined.
He is one of a handful of Kenyans living in Azerbaijan.
We are 7, the ones that I know.
Through his eyes, find out the lessons Kenya can pick as the two countries strengthen relations. Also on the show, let's fly. Our round-trip experience from Nairobi to Mombasa to Kisumu and back to Nairobi via Jumbo Jet and the meetings we achieved in one day.
The journey has taken about 14 hours. We've flown across 10 counties.
This as Jumbo Jet turns 9.
To protect our family from germs that cause illness when it's cold, we use Dettol soap.
Dettol soap with germ defense gives you protection. When it's cold, germs are transferred in different ways, and Dettol soap's germ defense protects you from up to 100 illness-causing germs. Be Dettol sure.
All right, welcome back to AM Live. We're looking at the state of the nation. Newton has requested that I allow him finish the point he was making just before the break, and then I will allow you, Joseph, to respond.
Yes, on the issue of subsidy, the cost of living that Joseph here and the Azimio people are trying to portray Kenya Kwanza to have failed. One thing that Kenyans need to understand, that right now the millers of this nation are struggling to foot their bills because someone in the previous regime tried to build a narrative that they are going to give subsidies to the Kenyan people, but they failed. How, you will ask me? Right now, the government is carrying out an audit on those subsidies so that those genuine people who offer the subsidized flour, unga ya ugali, can be paid so that they can continue. Most of them right now are running into losses, into financial incapacity because of the fact that they were duped into this arrangement of subsidies that did not exist. And that is the reason why the president is doing his best
through the subsidy of fertilizer. And right now, Olive, I can challenge any Kenyan to go to the NCPB regions and try to look around and look at the data of the farmers who have received the fertilizer subsidy that the president had been advocating for, so that the production can be improved. And at the end of the day, after the production is improved, we'll have enough food security in our country. But what about the UNGA subsidy that happened? We don't have any data.
Okay, Joseph.
I want to talk to my friend here and say that he said that the president is willing to talk directly to Kenyans. That's the conversation that they're willing to have is with Kenyans. And I asked my friend, when was the last time President William Samoei Ruto mentioned Mama Mboga? It was during the campaigns. He has never mentioned them. The Mama Mboga thing, he has never mentioned anything to do with them. And I can tell you that for sure, because we have been listening to him. The Mama Mboga discussion ended on September 2022. It will be rekindled in 2026. There's nothing for Mama Mboga in this country, in this regime. And I can tell you that for sure because we have seen how this government has conducted itself. Even that hustler fund narrative, it is just a hot air. You cannot see any business that maybe the young people it has helped. The issue
you have not seen.
Who?
Because you can't speak for all young people.
No, let us tell us. You see, let me finish. Lies are for present, but they don't have a future. We had, you know, let me tell you, when this government makes blunders of lying after lying after lying after lying to Kenyans, and consciously they know they are lying to Kenyans, we are not all from UDA. Some of us engage our brains and see that these are a scam, an illegitimate government that is trying to con Kenyans. I'm telling you that because even these fertilizers they are talking about, I come from Mount Kenya region. They are telling us, tell us where this fertilizer at a city to end. There is nowhere in Mount Kenya that fertilizer is being given. In Rift Valley, the fertilizer that they are given is NPK, not the DAP. They are asking the government, give us the DAP fertilizers that we are used to have. But the fertilizer that they are taken there is NPK. That does not help those people. Let's talk the truth. We stop these lies, because the person who is suffering, our parents. My parent does not recognize maybe I'm supporting Azimio or Kenya Kwanza. What he wants is the truth about issues. If it's about electricity, even my friend knows the reality that these rates are coming up on a daily basis. To an extent, President William Samoei Ruto said he will not, the issue of electricity will be sorted out and it will not increase anymore. But the moment he says that, it goes up. Kenyans, the real issues we are having in Azimio are the real issues affecting Mwananchi. If it's about the servers to be open, if they won election, what is the issue about it? Open the servers. If you won election, we'll just go home. We just want to know that it is real, you guys won, then we'll have nothing to say on the streets.
So you're saying this demonstration is not about the cost of living. Okay, I want to move us along. Okay, Taifa Leo hapa chini, I can see jaribio la kuvamia mali ya Uhuru la feli, and they're talking about his Narok ranch. And when I flip through the Daily Nation, there's a report authored by Macharia Gaidho, and this is page 5. Northland's attack exposes intra-Kikuyu row. The assault on the Kenyatta enterprise seemed planned and coordinated elements within the government. And interesting that just a few pages prior to that, we see President William Ruto speaking at that U.S. Investors Forum saying, "I'll uphold the rule of law." Speaking of, do his words match the actions of his government? And I ask that, Kiddy, stop smiling at me. And I ask that because we saw, for example, okay, not really, for example, the CS for Trade, Moses Kuria, tweet this. Where is it? Here we go. He said the tears of the Kariobangi grandmothers who were evicted during heavy rains amidst COVID-19 to pave way for greedy wealth accumulation have reached to the Lord. So this was on the day, and this was at 8:50 10:53 a.m. Was it the day or the day before? Yes, this was the day after, the morning after what happened at Northlands. There are those who captured a tweet he deleted saying, Maguta, Maguta. So they viewed it as being linked to that cutting away of property from Northlands. That happened for hours, and we did not see any police intervention until the day after. And even then, the IG of police alikuwa anaongea kizungu tu mingi, in my respectful, humble opinion. So, Kidi, when we have a president who says he will uphold the rule of law, but it took him, I believe, a day before he responded to that. It took the Ministry of Interior, the CS, Kithure Kindiki, 2 days to respond. Apart from this tweet, we have those from their camp. We have the statements that were made by Kimani Ichung'wah, which caused his very hostile remarks, or rather hostile demeanor, when he was on Citizen the other day with Wahiga Mwaura. We saw Didmas Barasa post on Facebook about, oh, if you know you don't have land, call this number and talk about Northlands. Do the president's actions, given that there was a loud silence immediately, in the immediate aftermath, do his words that I will uphold the rule of law match the actions of his administration? And I know you will tell me the Office of the Inspector General of Police is independent, and I see Mission nodding ferociously. But
Olive, give me a chance to respond. Then what I will say.
There is the theory, and then there are the practicals.
Yes.
Kidi.
Thank you. One, before I respond to that question, my brother Majus has said that the president has not mentioned Mamamboga in the last 6 months. I want to put it to him that part of the problem why we are in this economic quagmire, especially at people that are at the base of the pyramid, is because of what happened in 2014-2015, when the government raided the financial sector, the banking sector, took away the money, and therefore those that are in SMEs and in agriculture were left hanging high and dry. So then what then happened is that these people, this segment of the population, were left exposed to predatory lending. And now that is when Fuliza now comes in. You look at the annual percentage rate of Fuliza, and it is crazy. You cannot have a proper functional democracy where lenders, for instance, are giving out money at the rate of 1,800% per year. I mean, that is just crazy. But then what led us here was because those people who control banks found it convenient to get into an arrangement with government. So that today, when you talk of, for every 100 shillings collected, the 60 shillings we spend on loan repayment, 50 shillings goes to local banks. That was how bad it was. And now that is what necessitated the need to have the Hustler Fund. What the Hustler Fund has done, of course, some of us are now middle class. 50,000 may not mean anything. 500 shillings may not mean anything. 1,000 shillings does not mean anything, because that does not even fuel my brother Majuisa's car. But there are people out there to whom that 1,000 shillings may make the difference between having a meal on the table and sleeping hungry with children. So I think that even as we disagree with the president, even as we may disagree with the Kenya Kwanza, for those instances where they've made the right call, let us give it to them. The Hustler Fund, in a small way, has helped alleviate and contain the suffering of the people at the base of the pyramid. Of course, that is not a silver bullet, but it is a critical first step. Secondly, is that it must be pointed out that it is helping those people build on their credit history. And when they are able to, repay and borrow and repay, and they build a credit history, they would obtain creditworthiness that then makes them even more attractive to the formal banking system. something that because of the decisions made by the previous administration made it difficult for them to enjoy. So I think I wanted to point that out to my brother.
So, you're saying give credit where credit is due, pun intended.
Yes, yes. So that let political affiliation not blinden us from facts, from truth, and from, just being good Kenyans. Now, diving right into the heart of your question, that does the words of the president match his actions? One, I am a big believer in property rights, again in a constitutional democracy. The only reason why people work hard in any society is the assurance that if you are able to build any fortune, that fortune will be protected by the state. If you read the book called called The Wealth of Nations, in The Wealth of Nations, the central idea is that there is no greater generator of wealth than a system of free enterprise that unleashes the potential of men and women, so that when we can live in a society where your property can be invaded by people, and especially at the instigation of people you disagree with politically, that is a dangerous route that must not be tolerated. And so, indirectly answering your question, does the words of the president match his actions? I will tell you, we have lived in this country for some time, and we've seen instances where overzealous and rogue members of the executive can take advantage and engage in certain things that are extrajudicial, that are extra legal, sometimes behind the president. But in the words of Harry S. Truman, that the buck finally stops the president. So now that the president is back, the president must ensure that if and when there are anyone within his administration that was culpable in the vicious and senseless attack we witnessed at Northlands, in the one that we witnessed, we are being told that was perpetrated at the Kedong farm, let heads roll. That is the only way he would inspire confidence in people who would want to invest in this country. Because you realize that part of the challenge we have had, especially in the last 10 years, has been massive capital hemorrhage. There are people investors, especially foreign investors, who have looked at Kenya, and in comparison with our neighbors in the region, and they have felt that we do not provide an environment that then assures them that they can sit pretty about their investments. What this Maandamano has done, and coupled with the response of the government, is to heighten that anxiety of the investors. So the president must rein in on anyone who is culpable within his administration, and make sure that you do not have to agree with the president to invest in this country. Thank you.
Joseph? And Newton, I know you are to come next.
What I want to tell my brother is that he should call a spade a spade. Any government that has the police service, has the military, has the intelligence, but goes to the Panya route to engage militia is a failed government. And I have to say that.
Do you have proof of that?
Yes. I have a proof of that because the night to the attack, we have one of the nominated CSS, Dennis Itumbi, who wrote Northland. Then after that minute, he deleted it. We had one of the insiders of the UDA government, Baraza, a night to the attack, who told any person who does not have land to call, I don't know, Kawanjiko. Kawanjiko, you know, is an MP for Kiamba. To call Kawanjiko, he even gave up the number. To that, we had a CS in the government who tweeted Maguta Maguta. In our language means a very fertile land, Maguta Maguta. And even he followed with a tweet that you have read there. We had even, I think it's a newspaper said that all eyes were leading to a state-sponsored attack. And I can tell you, any president a person who knows he's leading a country, or even the CSAs, it doesn't matter the person you are, but you're in the government. You must be a criminal element to entertain an idea of hiring militia. I can tell you, during the era of Mwai Kibaki, even when things were very hot, you never saw Mwai Kibaki going to the Panya route entertaining militia. Because what he does, right now in in Sudan, what happened, the president who was there, when he entertained the militias, because when he entertained the militias, those militias became so powerful until they overturned him. The problem we have even in the North Rift, the problem we had with in Mount Kenya with Mungiki, the problem we have of regional gangs, were all started during the KANU era, because any dissenting voice, there were people who are fighting those people, but the government did want to see like it's the government taking those activities. If you are in opposition, you had a group of youth funded by the government fighting you. The reason I'm saying this was government-sponsored attack. It happened in broad daylight. Number one, it should have been robbery with violence, because those people came to rob an investor who is the retired president, and even they came with crude weapon. And they were not fearing that, even running. They were so comfortable, cutting down the trees, killing the sheep, selling a sheep of maybe 65,000, 1,000, and saying they are taking it, measuring a piece of land. What are you even telling to the investor? That any time you disagree with this government, they will send some bandits to you and attack you without any reason. 24 hours after Uhuru farm was attacked, there was no police on site. The farm is around here in Ruiru. There are police all over Kiambu. There are police all over Nairobi. The person we are not talking here is not just any Kenyan. We are talking about a person who should be respected, the retired president of this republic. Any investor out there seeing that, is that how you can you can treat your retired president, who is an investor, employing 1,000 of people? What about me, an insider, coming to invest in that country? What President William can do, if he wants Kenya to see that he is living to his word, any person directly or indirectly planned or sponsored the attacks on the northern land, that person should not be in the government or anywhere near government. And I said one thing: look at the people President William Samoei Ruto appointed in the government. Most of them, they have cases. Some even had murder cases. Some even had rape cases. In the government, CSS. Those are the people. An investor coming to Kenya, seeing what has happened in the Northland, he will go and ask, I want to see who is this Mohes Kuria. He will look at the profile of that person. He will go to the cabinet, look at what are the profile of these people. The reason this country has gone down, and I want to say this specifically, is because when a president takes office, instead of taking Kenyans who can do the job, you take political royalists who you don't care of their background, of their history, of their criminal element. You just want them to. Let me tell you, when Moi took government, things like KBC was functioning very well. Mount Kenya, we had Uplands Beacon. But when he took the president, he started appointing people for loyalists in those organizations. What happened? All the parastatals went down. Even Kenya Airways, that is struggling right now, it is struggling because a person saw it good to appoint a political loyalist than a competitive candidate. And that's why we heard the Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua saying, this is a company. We are giving shares to the people who voted for this government. My friend here, Kid, has no position in that government, even if he's tried to, because he never voted it. Even if he's qualified, they would rather take a criminal element instead of my friend Kid Moga, who is very educated and an upright man. You see, the government you are talking about. Yes. we are talking of a government that all the mandamanos that have been happening, all the routing that has been happening, now we can comfortably say that it is the government sponsoring the routing, the government sponsored the UDA office.
That is a big leap without evidence. So
the reason I'm saying this is, let me stop you there. The reason I'm saying this is because if as a government or people working in the government, surely you can hire goons to raid a former president's land, bandits. Because those are bandits. People who are stealing livestock and they are fighting livestock. People fighting livestock in northern Kenya, and people are going to the land and taking all the sheep. And we have an idea that people in the government, to a point of the CASs, did that. Let me tell you, Olive, even you yourself, if you have an issue maybe with your opponent or a person you don't like, for you to go to a level of hiring a militia shows that you are a criminal. You yourself.
Newton, I'll ask you to come in and respond. And as you respond to that, the press release that was issued by the Ministry of Interior 2 days later, and the first point in the statement is that includes that on 2 occasions in the last fortnight, Nairobi and Kisumu cities have witnessed widespread violence, looting and invasion of private property by hordes of criminals masquerading as either political protesters or persons aggrieved by historical land injustices. Do you think that the inclusion of historical land injustices was deliberate?
I want to say that from that statement from the Interior CS, it is fact that there was a Truth, Justice and Reconciliation Commission that was formed some time back, and a report was done. And the then President Uhuru Kenyatta failed to implement that particular report. Reason being, there were rumors that in that report, he is personally implicated in it. That is a fact. Second, my friend here said that there is no subsidy, fertilizer subsidy. How can you get the fertilizer subsidy program when on Mondays and Thursdays you are busy on the streets crippling the economy of the country? I request Azimio guys to focus, go back to their homes, their farms, and get this subsidy and farm. On this issue of attacking Northlands, my friend here said that it happened in the broad daylight. Are the mandamanos that they are doing happening at night? They are not. They are happening during the day. Meaning they are the sole beneficiaries of any attack on that Northlands property that we are being told, oh, the state planned it and all that. You know, my friend, I really wonder.
No, I'm trying to connect those dots and they're not connecting.
Yes, which ones?
That the fact that they're holding Mandamano in broad daylight somehow translates
exactly
them having been behind the Northlands.
Yes. Who is the beneficiary? Olive, who is the beneficiary of all these attacks to Uhuru land? Who are the beneficiaries? Is it the state? It is not the state.
What do you make of all the statements that he has referenced, made by persons in government?
You see, making reference to Nini, you know, Olive, I can tell you, Azimio has these crooked minds, that they see something and then they plan something so that it can align itself with whatever someone said. I can tell you for a fact, those attacks that you have seen in Northlands and the other one in Kedong, they were orchestrated by Azimio people.
Where is your proof?
My proof is, you guys have talked. Let me talk.
Let him,
allow me just to execute my point. You get me? You know, they are very quick to point fingers.
You know, he has drawn, he's listed that this person and this person and this person and this and this and this, and therefore to his mind,
yes,
this proves that this was.
And the majority leader of the National Assembly.
Where is your? Give us. You explain your process.
Yes. You see,
as to how you came to the conclusion.
Yes, to the conclusion is this, and it is very simple. Who is the beneficiary of Uhuru land being attacked?
You tell me.
Yes, it is Azimio people. How? Because at the end of the day, they will use that to say the government has attacked, so therefore another reason for us to demonstrate every Monday and Thursday. That is a fact. Because honestly speaking,
it's not stretching the imagination.
No, it is not stretching the imagination. It is the facts. It is the facts. Honestly, it is the facts. Because how can a government? Okay, how can a government? This is Olive. This remember, Uhuru Kenyatta is not just any ordinary Kenyan. He is a retired president who is under the military watch and also the government's watch.
You get me? So how can a government plan its own invasion?
Exactly. You tell me, how can a government?
Exactly.
Olive, my two brothers here seem to have found a chance to, let off whatever it was that was in their chests. It clearly shows that the police are not going to have a difficult task in unraveling who was behind the senseless attack on the property of the former president. Because my brother here clearly demonstrates that he knows people within the rank and file of Azimio who perpetrated the attack. And my brother Majid has also demonstrated that he knows something. So maybe the police may start from there. I'm joking. Only when we live in a country where, for instance, attack can be perpetrated against private enterprise, and then up to 24 hours, we have not seen a decisive police response. And even when they respond, it is so long after the fact. The question is, how safe are the people of Kenya in the hands of the police when they can fail to respond in time when the property of an ex-president is under attack? What would happen when Kidimwaga is attacked in his humble abode in the middle of nowhere? What would happen to what we call Mama Mboga when she is attacked in the marketplaces by hooligans? So I think that was a serious indictment on the part of the police. The explanation provided by the Ministry of Interior was this: while the quick action of the police and private security guards repulsed the industrial area criminals, that was the attack on Raila Odinga's own Spectre, East African Spectre, action to protect the Ruiru property, now this is the explanation they give, was not as quick owing to operational constraints caused by the protests that were taking place. You cannot talk of operational constraints while, there is no maandamano in Kiambu, essentially. The maandamano, the mass action was in Nairobi. I think there is police regional command in Thika. Yes. Kiambu town is not very far from Northlands. And even if there were, the DCI is not very far from Northlands, the DCI headquarters. So that does not actually make sense. And look at this attack in its potential to be viewed through political lenses. And you see, when it is viewed through political lenses, it has a real potential of plunging this country into an abyss. In 1994, Rwanda was a very peaceful country until while Juvenal Habyarimana was coming from Dar es Salaam, going to Kigali, his plane was made to come down, and Juvenal Habyarimana was no more. What then followed was something I am cautious not to repeat on this show. So our leaders must conduct themselves cautiously and with grace, remembering that even after they are gone, there will still be a country. We had President Kibaki, we had President Moi. They served this country to the best of their abilities, with their mistakes and successes. They are both gone, and we still have a country. So I want to urge the leaders to conduct themselves with grace. The attack on the property of the president, of President Kenyatta, is unjustified and it cannot be excused. My brother is saying it was organized by people in Azimio. I think that is also stretching common sense. Why is it stretching common sense? He should call that out. He is in a party that is right in the heart of Kenya Kwanza. If he calls it out, it gives legitimacy to the claims that the government is keen to protect private property. But when, as one of the senior young people within government, he is seeking to sound politically correct, then, it makes someone who is not within the reach of that government to look at the government and cast doubt on the government's ability, seriousness, and commitment to protect private property. Thank you.
All right, and sorry, Joseph,
just 2 seconds.
2 seconds.
I just want to say this. The same vigor and energy the DCI used to bring the photos of the people who they thought were demonstrating. We want to see the same vigor and energy of them parading the people who invaded Northland. because the Kenyans have all those clips. It was online for everybody, but up to this level, the DCI has not taken any action on them, or notifying those people that they are coming for them, or even displaying their images. That one can tell you this one was biased and it was planned and everybody was in it.
Okay. I will, please allow me to end the show there, because I have to make way for Sherehe Sheria. And speaking of Sherehe Sheria today, it's been quite the indictment on the conduct of the National Police Service. All right, my name is Oliver. This has been AM Live. Newton Hamisi, he is the spokesman, DP, Democratic Party of Kenya. Right.